If you've been alive in the last 50 years, it's pretty likely that you have at some point sung along with a crowd of people to the classic song American Pie. Don McLean's masterpiece about the day the music died has not only lasted since it was put out in 1971, it's grown in popularity over the years, and it's become a staple of American pop culture. Fans of American Pie and Don McLean have a reason to be thrilled, because while McLean has given tidbits of info over the years about his enigmatic song, he's now taking it to a new level. McLean appears in a new documentary called The Day the Music Died, the story of Don McLean's American Pie, which airs on Paramount+. In it, McLean gives an expansive take on the song, its lyric, and its effect on American culture. So join Factsverse as Don McLean reveals the true meaning of American Pie 50 years later. The Day the Music Died. Fans of Don McLean, American Pie, and music history are likely familiar with The Day the Music Died. It was when several promising young musicians, Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper, were killed in a plane crash in Iowa, February 3, 1959. At the time, Don McLean was a child in New Rochelle, New York. The new eye-opening documentary, The Day the Music Died, the story of Don McLean's American Pie, begins by taking us back to that fateful day. They managed to find a man who was at the final concert those musicians ever played. They were in the middle of a tour and decided to fly to the next stop because their bus kept breaking down in the frigid Iowa winter. Also featured in the documentary is the man whose company rented out the plane that went down. And to top it off, the documentarians managed to get Ritchie Valens' sister Connie to agree to be interviewed about the song. And while she's obviously still sad about the loss of her brother, she's thankful that McLean created this legendary song that cemented Ritchie's place in American history and culture. McLean's childhood. In 1959, Don McLean was only 13 years old, living in a suburban neighborhood in New Rochelle. As the song mentions, he was a paper boy at the time. In the documentary, McLean gives an exclusive interview, essentially breaking down each lyric to the song. So not surprisingly, it begins with an examination of his childhood years. He says he remembers delivering the paper on the day the news of the crash was reported, and how deeply it affected him as a fan of music and of those artists. Buddy Holly was in fact his #1 childhood idol, so McLean was devastated by the loss. He talks about how he had bronchial asthma and how he used to head to the House of Music, a local record store on Main Street in New Rochelle. These details were immortalized in the song, with lyrics calling himself a teenage bronchian buck who would go down to the sacred store. Tragedy struck again for McLean when his father died only 2 years after the day the music died, when he was 15. This event, plus the plane crash that killed his musical idols, are the two things that prompted him to write the song in the first place. It could even be seen as therapeutic, as McLean tried to grapple with the losses he suffered as a child through songwriting as a grown man. Before we tell you more, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. McLean's songwriting years. The documentary explores McLean's years as a budding singer-songwriter, as he honed his chops in Greenwich Village. He learned a lot from legendary folk singer Pete Seeger, and McLean talks about how those influences showed up in American Pie. For example, the sing-along nature of the chorus of the song is very reminiscent of people singing traditional songs around a campfire. He even notes how the song has elements of nursery rhymes like Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Yet Don talks about how the youthful nature of these musical devices helped to counter the tumult of the era. In the late 60s and early 70s, America was going through as much change as it had in a century, and the chaos of the times was reflected in some of the song's lyrics. And perhaps part of the magic of American Pie is that it weaves seemingly contradictory elements so effortlessly. McLean clarifies the references. American Pie contains so many pop culture, storybook, and political references, it can be confusing to follow along, let alone understand what each reference is about. McLean helps to clear up some of the ambiguity in the documentary. For example, he denies that Elvis was the king he refers to. He also puts an end to the speculation that Janis Joplin was the girl who sang the blues, as well as any notions that he was referring to Bob Dylan when he mentions a jester. The song's arrangement and length. McLean not only dives into the lyric elements of American Pie, but he also gives behind-the-scenes info on the arrangement and length of the song. He mentions the song had been missing its core groove for a while. Then they had Paul Griffith, a session piano player, join the recording. Griffith added gospel energy to it with a little bit of a pop groove. McLean also talks about the massive length of the song. Most hit songs were about half the length of American Pie, if that, making it a bold undertaking to begin with. His label at the time decided they would split the song in half and have side A of the vinyl record be the first half of the song and have it finish on side B. As such, the first half of the song ended in a bit of a cliffhanger. This ended up being quite the hook for radio listeners who demanded the on-air DJs turn the record over to hear the end of the song. This was particularly true for AM radio, though the trend for FM at the time was to embrace longer songs, so it wasn't as hard of a sell for those stations. Regardless, the song hit #1 on the charts, and for 50 years it was the longest song to do so, at 8 minutes and 42 seconds. Taylor Swift's recent All Too Well 10-minute version recently eclipsed it. McLean isn't happy. While Don McLean has firmly established himself in the pantheon of great American songwriters, that doesn't mean he's lived a life of carefree happiness. As is the case with many great creative artists, McLean has somewhat of a tortured psyche. At 76, McLean says he feels more fragile than ever, and he tries not to overextend himself, as he's constantly worried about the strain of exhaustion. But it's not simply his age. He's admitted to generally not being a happy person. He references his childhood as lacking warmth or togetherness, and instead remembers it being more of an empty house where he felt isolated. As a result, he turned inward and started more creative endeavors. McLean also admits that people like him, namely creative artists, are inherently emotional and feel things acutely. He says he actually had a nervous breakdown at one point in the 1970s where he couldn't leave the house or stop crying. As a result of this, McLean says he's distrustful of others and feels very much on his own. He says he has a few friends, including his bandmates, but he also has difficulty keeping up with his friendships, especially people from long ago in his life. He also sold the house he grew up in because whenever he'd visit, he'd be filled with sadness, triggered by negative memories from childhood. He lives with his girlfriend, Paris, and yet still tries to maintain a certain level of separation from her within their house. And the two are sure not to touch each other's stuff around the house. Yet, at the same time, he admits he has a great life, and he's lucky to have her as well as his legacy. Now it's time to hear from you. Which lyric in American Pie do you think is the most confusing? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content. By the way, if you haven't joined Facts First as a member yet, be sure to look below this video and click the join button. By becoming a paid member of Facts First, you'll get access to exclusive video content that you won't find anywhere else. This includes some of our more mature content that isn't suitable for public audiences, which includes topics like Hollywood actresses who posed for Playboy and some of the steamiest moments in movie history. Plus, you can enjoy these videos completely ad-free.